Let's talk about the three-layer language of overwhelm. The first layer is obvious. What overwhelm means is a clear signal to us to stop. It means your nervous system has reached capacity and it's full and it needs rest. So loud and clear, overwhelm is a signal saying, stop, just stop right there. Give it a break. Maybe it's a small break, but give it a break. This is not weakness, and as highly sensitive people, we sometimes judge ourselves as being weak for needing to stop earlier than other people. This is because our system, our particular kind of nervous system, reaches its capacity earlier than other people. That's what it means to be highly sensitive. We have a limit that shows up sooner than the limits of other people. Everyone has a limit, and if you push anyone far enough, you're going to end up reaching their capacity and they're going to experience overwhelm. With highly sensitive people, we experience this earlier, and it's not a bad thing because it means that we correct earlier, and if we pay attention to it, we don't have to go to the extremes and have to get to a dire circumstance before we begin to self-correct. This is intelligence, actually. This is self-protection, and it's built into our nervous system for a good reason. So the first layer of this language of overwhelm is the message, loud and clear, to stop what you're doing and look again and see if you can take some rest. Problem is, as highly sensitive people and people in general, we tend to miss this or we override this signal because we are attached to some other things. We are attached to being productive, for example, or we're attached to being nice, for example, or we're trying to avoid conflict in some way. And so we can end up feeling guilty if we stop or if we decide to take a rest when we think we should be productive or we should be avoiding conflict, or we should be going along with people. In other words, there's an element of trying to please others. Now, this is not our nature. This is something that we, as highly sensitive people, tend to do more than others because we are so sensitive to the needs of others. But our nature is to be sensitive, not to be codependent, or not to be completely locked into what other people think of us. Yes, that is something we're aware of, and it's something we navigate with skill. But if we get attached in any way, then this is a great place to do a little bit of inner work, a little place to question your thoughts. I need to get this done by this time, or I need to make sure they stay happy at all costs. The problem is, we as highly sensitive people tend to be very good at attuning to others. But if we attune to others and lose attunement to ourselves, then that's not a gain, that's a loss. And so we need to just be aware that turning our sensitivity towards ourselves is as important as turning it towards other people. So the key is to notice when this happens. Notice when the overwhelm begins. And it usually begins with some early signs of body tension or brain fog, some emotions starting to build under the surface. And you can take little micro pauses before you hit the full-blown version of overwhelm. Sometimes you may have thoughts like, if I stop now, it means I'm weak or I'm unreliable. Question thoughts like that. Question whatever is stopping you from taking care of yourself, because your nervous system is not lying. It's telling you something true, something useful. It's saying, hey, please stop what you're doing for a moment. You need to regroup and you need to find balance again. So that's the first layer of the language of overwhelm. The next layer is a little more subtle, and that is the way that overwhelm presents itself to us. It starts out as a whisper. It starts out always with something gentle, just a flicker of irritation, a little restlessness or a little resistance, just a small kind of feeling that's there. And then if we ignore that, then it speaks up a little louder and it becomes a little stronger. And it can end up getting stronger and stronger if we keep ignoring it until it's actually shouting at us or actually knocking us down, laying us flat out. And that's the power of overwhelm. Nature does this in a very intelligent way. So if you're paying attention, you can catch the overwhelm earlier and you can course correct long before you have to make a huge, before you have a breakdown or something. So we, as highly sensitive people, have a huge advantage here because we are attuned to the subtle things going on inside of ourselves, inside of in the world around us. And so if we can pay attention to these subtle feedbacks coming in the terms of the feelings that we're having, we can course correct very early and stay balanced without having to flip between overwhelm and then complete recovery and then overwhelm and then completely on our back again. So the idea is to track your overwhelm patterns. Like, when do these happen? Maybe it's a recurring thing. What time of day? What people or tasks cause this? And start questioning the thoughts that you have about those situations, the people in those situations, and see if you can find ways of seeing or experiencing those that are less overwhelming. And if you can't, then protect yourself from those spaces, from those situations, so that you don't get overwhelmed. Okay, so then the final area where we're looking at the language of overwhelm is what I call a kind of compass signal. And it's basically saying you're going in the wrong way, which is similar to the idea of stop, but it's more subtle than that. Basically, when we're overwhelmed, we are probably following some kind of belief or thought in ourselves that is out of alignment with our actual truth. And so we are wanting to do something, but there's something inside of us that's not wanting to do it. We're trying to do something we think is important, but there's a part of us that feels like that's not really where I want to be. And so paying attention to that is part of the job of overwhelm. It points us there. So I like to ask myself, what am I believing right now when I'm overwhelmed? And is this thought kind? Is it honest? Is it helpful? Maybe I'm right. Maybe I'm 100% sure I'm right. But is it really kind? Or is it really honest? And that might be going against a part of me that really loves honesty or kindness. And I may be just stuck on rightness. So what would it look like if I went in the opposite direction? I like to use overwhelm as a mirror. It's not a flaw. It's not something wrong with us. It's not something to somehow get out of our system. Overwhelm is there as a feedback for us and as a way of seeing ourselves, and it can reveal the places where we are abandoning ourselves. So, in a way, you can think of overwhelm as a portal. You may think that you're broken when you hit your limit. You may think that this edge is too much and is terrible and is a bad thing. But if you look at overwhelm as a way of seeing yourself and getting more in touch with yourself, then it can be a way to profoundly return to yourself. It's like a call. Come back to yourself. And it can point us there again and again and again. So the question to ask yourself is, what wisdom does my system have for me right now? I'm feeling overwhelmed. What is it trying to tell me? What is the message? If you listen, you will find all kinds of wisdom there, and you will be pointed most likely in the opposite direction, but the specifics of that will give you clear direction on where you can find peace, where you can find happiness, where you can find balance. And I know of no better way of reading that compass, which is telling us to go in the opposite direction of where we think we should be going, than that simple process of the work of Byron Katie, which points you back in a very gentle way to yourself and to looking at is there another way that this same situation could be seen from an opposite point of view? And when you do, you may find that you're going away from stress and going away from overwhelm, and all the crying of overwhelm and all that loud language that it brings in may start to diminish.